Hello students, welcome to this presentation on the structure of a cell. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. In the next few minutes, we will learn about the main parts of a cell and their functions. So moving on to the next slide. So overview of cells. So the cells are the smallest living units of the human body. They were first discovered by Robert Hooke in the 17th century. So each cell can take in nutrients, produce energy, remove waste, maintain its shape, and reproduce itself. These are the functions that a cell can perform. So these life supporting functions are carried out by specialized structures called cell organelles, which are known as the parts of the cell. So, moving on to the basic structure of a cell. Here we can see the many structures labeled as nucleus, ribosomes, Golgi apparatus, Golgi vesicle, cytoplasm, vacuole, lysosome, peroxisome, endoplasmic reticulum, centrosome. These are the major cell organelles that we are seeing. So the human cells have three main parts, that is the plasma membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. So the plasma membrane forms the outer boundary of the cell. The cytoplasm is the jelly-like interior that contains organelles, and the nucleus is the control center that regulates all the cellular activities. So the nucleus controls the cellular activities and it lies near the cell center. So the first one is the cell membrane, which is also known as plasma membrane. So the plasma membrane is a thin flexible layer that surrounds the cell. So the plasma membrane is also known as plasma lemma, where lemma is known as sheath or husk. So it is a thin and flexible layer that defines the cell's boundary. So here we are seeing the functions of the plasma membrane. So it separates the insides of the cell from the outside environment. It controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. It also contains receptors that helps in cellular communication, and it acts as like a protective security barrier. So it also contains receptors which are the checkpoints that regulate and influence the cellular activity. So next part is the nucleus, which is the control center of the cell. So the nucleus has nucleolus, which is inside the nucleus, which produces the ribosomes. So, the nucleolus is a dense region inside the nucleus, and the function of the nucleolus is to producing the ribosomal RNA and assembles the ribosomal subunits. So, it is mainly involved in the production of the ribosomes. So, the next part is the nucleoplasm, which is also known as nuclear sap, which is a gel like substance within the nucleus. So the function of the nucleoplasm is which suspends the chromatin and nucleolus and which acts as a medium for the chemical reactions inside the nucleus. So next is the nuclear envelope, which is a double membrane surrounding the nucleus. It separates the nucleus from the cytoplasm. And another one is nuclear pores, which allows the transport of materials like RNA and proteins between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So, which is a protein lined channels in the envelope and regulate the transport of messenger RNA proteins and ribosomal units into and out of the cells. So the next one is the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So the mitochondria has four major parts, which is outer membrane, inner membrane, cristae, and matrix. So the outer membrane is smooth, selectively permeable, which helps in the protection and it also contains the organelles. And the inner membrane is folded into cristae, which houses the proteins of the electron transport chain and cristae or the inner membrane folds, which is mainly helpful in increasing the surface area for the ATP synthesis. So the major function of the mitochondria is the production of ATP, which provides energy. So matrix is internal fluid filled with enzymes, DNA and ribosomes, and it is the site of Krebs cycle, which is known as citric acid cycle. So the mitochondria is known as the energy currency of the cell where it produces the ATP. So the next is the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the factory. So the endoplasmic reticulum is classified as rough ER and smooth ER. So the rough ER is ribosome started membranes where the ribosomes are attached to the membranes. So the function of the rough ER is synthesis of proteins, especially for export or membrane use. And the smooth ER is free from ribosomes and no ribosomes are attached to the ER. So the functions of the endoplasmic reticulum and that is the smooth ER is lipid and steroid synthesis, detoxification, that is especially in the liver cells, and calcium storage, especially in muscle cells. These are the function of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So the next is the Golgi apparatus, which is known as the post office. So it has cisternae, cisphase, and transphase. So the cisternae means the stacks of flattened membrane-bound stacks that we can found in the diagram. And the function of the cisternae is to modify and sort the lipids and proteins that are produced and package the proteins. So the cis phase is the receiving side which faces the ER which receives the protein molecules, and the trans phase is the shipping side which sends the vesicles to their destinations. So this is the function of the Golgi apparatus. So which acts as a post office, that is the receiving and sending the bounded sacs. So the next is the ribosomes. So the ribosomes is major helpful in the protein builders. So the proteins are built as larger subunits and small subunits, which is the 60s and 40s is the size of the subunits. So totally 80s size is produced. So the function is translation of messenger RNA into proteins. So the major protein synthesis takes place in the ribosomes. So the next one is the centrosome, which is a cell organizer that is majorly involved in the cell division. So it contains two centrioles and organizes as microtubules during the cell division, that is during the mitosis phase, which is the division of the cell. So the next is the lysosomes, which is the recycling center, that it contains hydrolytic enzymes and which is active at acidic pH, where the breakdown of cellular wastage and damaged organelles and pathogens. So the removal of the wastage is done by the lysosomes. So, to conclude, the cell is a highly organized structure where each organelle performs a specific function to keep the cell alive and active. Thank you.